All right. We'll wait for a handful of folks to jump in and join us here. Um,
Hey, John.
hey, JD. We'll just wait for a handful of folks to kind of transfer from the last session room to join us here. But as we're waiting for folks to log on in, this one's an exciting one. Let me set the stage for everybody here today. You've probably seen this gentleman's face for various CDM events like this one. But our own JD Miller, our SVP of Marketing and Communities, JD is a veteran technology leader alongside a global spokesperson on various technology issues on CNBC, Fox Business, Bloomberg, Yahoo, and more. JD has index studies created by his expertise that's really become a gold standard for across the media technology, identifying trends used by global institutions. And just to kind of give you a little perspective, just this last year alone, JD has probably spent a collective of 6,000 minutes with some of the top CIOs and CISOs in the industries during our video platforms and CDM media boardrooms, think tanks, and summits. So without further ado, JD, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for the introduction, John. And it's exciting to see the types of people we're having at this event today. And I continue everybody, before we jump into the questions, to join in the conversation, join in the chat window, join on the LinkedIn event that we sent the link earlier about, and also across our LinkedIn, because there's a lot to cover here today, and we're just going to be scratching the surface.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you kind of hit it spot on. I think these are two topics that has evolved through the course of the year, through the course of the new norm, if you may, right? And I think it's going to continue to evolve as we move forward in 2021 and beyond. So just to kind of dive right in, because this is an interesting topic, right? Looking at the evolution. But I guess for you, JD, what does digital transformation mean today?
Nothing. I mean, it means everything, but also it's one of the most misused terms out there. Digital transformation can be a lot of different things for a lot of people, for a lot of individuals and a lot of companies. That might mean their migration to the cloud. It might mean adopting AI and adopting machine learning, but it's been a term that's been used so much that we're all in a digital transformation, right? Whether it's different processes and platforms we're using today, or using cloud and AI, which we're here talking about today. So when people come to me and go, talk to me about the shift in digital transformation, like it's not a shift. We've shifted. Everybody's doing digital transformation now. Now let's talk about how we're specializing, right? How is it going to be different when we're moving forward? How are we going to have a cloud environment that's going to work for my company going forward? How am I going to use AI and machine learning now, and then also going into the future? And then also, do I have the people to do it? So instead of just digital transformation, I think we need to get a little more specific on that and say, what is your cloud transformation? What's your machine learning transformation going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in terms of looking forward, we can't really address that without having to understand some of the lessons learned that we've had, right? And one of the key things that's really changed the landscape is 2020 in general, right? Whether that's a pandemic, right? The shift that has happened. With that said, how has the pandemic changed digital transformation for most organizations?
Budget first and foremost. A lot of organizations had their budget slashed, halted, frozen. Others had the budget wide open, right? For a way to get everybody to work from home, to have business continuity going. But budget first and foremost has really shifted during this pandemic. Staffing, that's another thing, right? Staffing, do we have the right people in place? And then a lot of organizations scale back staff. So how can I have this transformation if I don't have the staff to do it? Because a lot of organizations shifted 3 years into 3 weeks. And it left organizations reeling, and a lot of technologists kind of sitting back going, okay, let's see if this works. Did the steps we took, did moving remote, did having our business model shift so quickly, so dramatically, did it work? And there's sectors that have benefited in this, John, and sectors including healthcare, because healthcare had to move very quickly, and the pressures on healthcare we're bigger than ever before. Public sector is another one. How is public sector moved and really providing the services everybody needs at home? Because we're all sitting here at home. I know you and I are, John. A lot of people are going back, but when you're looking at the stresses and strains on different areas, it's fascinating. Banking finance is another one. Right now, we've learned that brick and mortar isn't necessarily what is essential for banking and finance. It can all be done digitally and remotely. So the pandemic has accelerated things. What I'm going to be interested to see is, what does it look like in 12 months? What does it look like in 24 months? I heard a study recently that because of the pandemic, and recessions do this too, right? But because of the pandemic, that business travel, now this is not say cloud and AI, but business travel is going to take 10 years to recover. 10 years. Usually with a recession, it's about 5 years, but it's going to take 10 years. So keep that in mind. Also, people are still going to be remote. They're still going to have to find ways to work and conduct business. So it's a huge impact that the pandemic has had on transformation for organizations.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you hit that spot on, especially on your first point there with healthcare, right? I think it's done a tremendous positive change having to, if there's a silver lining through the course of this terrible pandemic, I think it's having to shift the technology investments and the technology strategies, right? Telehealth, for example, was a function within healthcare that people utilized, but it wasn't the end all be all, right? So there were a lot of either elderly or folks that just didn't have the bandwidth that still had to go to the hospital when they have their checkups, when they have all of these items that they need to do. But now it's accelerated that you do have the access to genuine healthcare without having to be susceptible to being out and about, or just even accessibility in general, right? And I think that's a great positive thing. And then to your last point, as an individual that tend to travel 90% of the year, right? I outside of a handful of items that I've left the city, right, whether that's to visit family and such, I haven't really gone into a plane for business yet. But I think the airline industry has done some steps to continue the customer loyalty around that, right? I'm an American Airlines customer, and they've obviously extended my status through the end of the year to January 2022. Now, needless to say, I don't think I'm going to be still traveling a whole lot the second half of the year. I think from that 10-year push that you've mentioned, I think another step for them is, how long do we continue to extend this so we don't lose these loyal customers that we've had through the decades, right? That's built their status or what have you, right? Or even incentivize the new set of traveler that might have been a little weary before to continue to do it now. So I think you hit that extremely spot on there. Well, with that said, I mean, we talked about challenges. Let's be specific for a second here. CIOs in general have a big oversight, but for the CIOs in general, what are the top challenges that you think they're seeing this year?
Well, interesting you asked that, because we asked that of CIOs that have come to our events over the last year, right? And digital transformation is number one. As I mentioned, I think it's a little more narrow than just full-on digital transformation. So that's not a surprise as a top challenge. The newly remote workforce coming in second, skills gaps third. But key projects, when they're looking forward, that cloud migration is the number 2 key project on the minds of CIOs out there, leading change and driving innovation being number 1. But they need cloud migration in a way they've never needed it before. And again, it's this shift, right? This shift from 3 years, 36 months down to 3 weeks to 3 months. So what are organizations doing to move their data to the cloud? And the time to address for CIOs, it has shifted considerably. It used to be about, they wanted to accomplish it within about 12, 18 months, 36 months. Now it's shortened. It's 6 months. It's time to address these key projects and these key challenges out there. Now, if you flip that, John, and look at what are CISOs looking at, and data protection, number 1, for top challenges, that shouldn't be a huge surprise out there. And unknown security threats, we're seeing that, all around with SolarWinds and other organizations getting high profile breaches. key projects, security management, number one, but cloud migration is right there for CISOs out there. They're looking to find out, how can I do this safely, effectively? And they're also looking for partners to lead them and hold their hands as they're going through this. And then time to address, that's about 6 months. They really need to find these solutions as quick as humanly possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's dive into some specific topics around that then, because I think the shift has really done a good number on organizations and also some learning curves, right? Let's talk specifically in AI, right?
Yeah.
Has the pandemic shifted the tech focus away or towards AI and cognitive?
It's really shifted it towards, we polled some technologists out there, a large group. 86% said that the pandemic has accelerated their need to invest in AI initiatives. Half adopted AI in at least one business function in this last year. It's been widely really used in general population, right? 5 of 6 people use AI in their daily life. But the proliferation into business has been really fascinating to me looking out there. And when you're looking at what sectors are embracing AI the most right now, banking and finance, insurance, $12 billion is expected to be invested in AI this year alone in banking and finance. Manufacturing's second, tied with retail at about 9.5% or 9.5 billion rather. And public sector, not far off, just about $9 billion. Now, what is interesting when we were going through this and looking at the dollars spent, healthcare wasn't part of that group, right? Only about 5 billion. I know, billion. It's not million, it's billion. 5 billion. But still, it's less than the others. I thought it would be more, but they're already there. They're already leveraging AI and machine learning in a lot of different ways. Now it's still accelerating. And one thing that was interesting to me, John, is looking what area is missing. We talked about banking, manufacturing, retail, public sector, healthcare, automotive. Automotive was one that was missing from the list. I thought it would definitely be more with future vehicles. They're set to be fully connected driving, leveraging AI. We're seeing it in commercials. You're seeing it at auto shows. Increasing efficiency and adding value to processes around traditional manual-driven vehicles is key. Now, we all know about the chip shortage right now, and that's really hurting the automotive industry quite a bit. But expect to see the automotive sector, moving up that list as far as AI spend.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would be interested to see how they're going to utilize it, right? I think you've kind of hit it spot on. Commercials tend to hit us with a little bit of excitement when we see it, but I think when they actually start implementing it into practice, it'd be interesting to see how they move forward with it. We can't really talk about growth without talking about some of the inhibitors that come alongside it, right? So talking about AI and machine learning, what do you think are the biggest inhibitors out there that you're hearing from CIOs and CISOs?
I like to outline 4 T's. It's the 4 T's: talent, time, tenacity, and tech partners, right? Those are inhibitors out there. Talent, getting the right talent, getting people who really know the ins and outs to drive internally, or finding those partners. The time to do it, because time is so short as these transformations are happening at a breakneck pace. Tenacity, being able to stick to a plan and drive that. And as I mentioned earlier, the tech partners. And it is interesting when you look at AI is going to potentially drive 13 trillion of global economic activity by 2030. 13 trillion. To me, that's extremely fascinating. And as we poll, right, 1/3 of IT leaders are planning to use machine learning for business analytics now, like right now. 1/4 plan to use machine learning for security purposes. And I know many of the top security people we have with us today can echo that amount as well. And when you look at top concerns for CIOs and CEOs, right, AI is on the top of the list, if not the top, the second of the list, where they need to go as an organization.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, I know we could always get into a rabbit hole with AI and machine learning. It's such a big topic, but let's shift to cloud quickly here. Is migration to cloud slowing down in your opinion?
No, it's accelerating. So much. when you look at public cloud spending, just a couple of years ago, back in 2019, it was 230 billion were spent on public cloud. By 2023, that's expected to be 500 billion. 500 billion. That's an annual compound annual growth rate of 22%, which is astounding. And I would challenge, and put it in the chat if you're not one of these, that your organization is accelerating to the cloud now more than ever before. Because I really think that organizations that are falling behind. Now, I know there's challenges, right? Challenges of legacy debt, right? Technical debt that you have to deal with. Legacy systems that really you can't move to the cloud. So you have to have some sort of hybrid situation. Those things are going to happen. But one thing to keep in mind also on the migration to cloud and what that means for organizations is you have to have a tighter eye on security. And I know our CISOs will agree with me on this, that one scary stat I found out there, that 99% of cloud security failure is going to be their customer's fault. Think about that for a second, John. 99% of cloud security failures are going to be your customer's fault. So it's nothing you do internally. It's going to, be external and outside your perimeter. And so that's going to be a huge area of focus as we go forward. So migration to the cloud is going to continue to accelerate, but also our security practices and posture around it have to accelerate as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think your point in the earlier part of this fireside chat was outside of the process and the platforms, the people have to be inclined as well to really adapt through these technology shifting behaviors. With that said, what are you hearing about staffing, right? Because obviously the pandemic has shifted a lot of things and now things are getting back to some sort of normalcy. What are you hearing about staffing?
It's hard to find, right? It's always hard to find top IT, top security people out there to help your executives succeed. So one study that I heard from ZipRecruiter, Glassdoor, and PayScale, AI and machine learning, the AI and machine learning engineer position specifically is the most in-demand tech job out there. It grew 344% over a 3-year span. And that's huge because we're not getting the right people in place. Or if you bring them in or try to train internally, that's a challenge as well, because now you have a ramp to go up as far as a learning curve, if you will. And the really interesting thing, and I'll say this to any young technologist going out there, going to school, if you're going to look and focus around one area, AI, right? It's predicted to create 2 million net new jobs by 2025. So in just 4 years, 2 million net new jobs. So they're hot. They're going to be out there, and businesses that have those skills in place, you got to hold those tight. You got to treat those people well and keep them there. Unfortunately, that also means the pay is going to go ding, 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 right? So it's going to be a challenge. And right now, 55% of businesses say they have insufficient time to properly grow their teams. Again, this is where partners come into play, right? You lean on those partners, lean on them to have that expertise around AI, have that expertise around cloud that can hold your hand going through this. And it is really important to have that. And a lot of organizations are looking to reskill or upskill their talent. Now, there's something to be said for that, because I think the human element still needs to be there, right? The human element is extremely important as we're trying to fill these gaps within our organizations. But that reskilling and upskilling, there's a learning curve there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think this is a great tie into what we're going to have discussed today. For everyone that's joining us, I would be remiss to not tell you about our midday keynote panel, talking exactly what we just have. If you want to hear a perspective on the CTO, the CISO, and the CIO side, our panel around people, process, and platforms really ties in perfectly to what JD has just basically said, and even kind of give you a real-time look of some organizations' journeys around many of the key factors that we've kind of shared today. And last but not least, that last keynote talking about AI and analytics. it basically just puts your your saying onto paper there, JD, and I think it's a perfect application for everyone to kind of hear. With that said, thank you for the time, JD. This was a fantastic insight from your perspective. I know having to have a good interaction with multiple top level CIOs and CISOs has really garnished some good insights on your end. So thank you for the time here.
Oh, thanks, John. I love sharing, what our communities out there are saying, and because I hear the fears, I hear the challenges, but I also hear the successes. And a lot of your organizations are on the path to success, and that's great to hear. So, well, we're going to jump into our next session. John, thank you so much, and I encourage everybody to click the green back button. I'll see you in the next room as we get going.
Thank you, everyone.